No importa si les gustó o no, Bebé Reno será definitivamente una de las series del año. El impacto que tuvo es innegable. Lo llamativo es que, según me contó su director de fotografía, no se la veían venir.
We now return to Mira Akien and Contré with our latest interview.
It had like this almost like a viral effect.
Yeah.
We didn't expect that. We didn't know it's gonna happen like that. We always expected it would be quite a niche, small show.
She comes to my work, my house. She sends me emails like all the time.
Are any threatening towards you?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's particularly threatening.
When I read the script for the first time, I sort of strangely thought about words like, I don't know, I love the grittiness of Fight Club, for example. I love the kind of the world which is definitely somehow expressed in visuals through the state of the main character. And I think that was sort of the aim with Baby Reindeer. Not to make it like expressionistic, but that there is an element of Donnie's misery kind of translated into the visuals of the film. Richard and the producers they wanted to make it too depressing, whereas I think for me, I always saw probably grittier version of it.
Oh yeah.
But I'm glad, as in grittier version that maybe initially they wanted to see, or they were imagining it. I think we brought some Eastern European grittiness to the table.
I think one of us is gonna have to die now.
We committed to a certain style of framing throughout the show that places Donnie in the middle. And that was always like the idea. And then kind of Martha being in his face, being really intrusive, being really close to the camera with wider lenses, with eye line always almost as close to the lens. When we filmed them, we would quite often have a situation where they couldn't even see each other because the camera was in the way. You know, that made the feeling stronger, where, you know, they're almost looking in the lens. There's this kind of tightness of eye line that you feel, and it intensifies the experience, and I think makes it a bit more intrusive and expressive.
There's a reason you're keeping her around, and maybe it's what she gives you.
Got really manly hands, haven't you? Chiseled jawline. Should we run away together?
We were looking for color palette, and I think at some point we said, oh, it's like bodily colors, but the sort of the non-pleasant part, the non-pleasant side of it. It's basically his ex's bedroom and his ex's mother's house, and we wanted to create a feeling of little bit more comfort. The bedroom is painted pink, and there is a little bit of a cocoony feeling to that space. Whereas with Martha's apartment, it always felt like that should be a sort of colors of decomposition of organic materials, if you know.
Yeah.
It's like the kitchen, I still remember, it was like such a mess. They did such a great job. The production designer Debbie Burton did such a great job of, you know, making it really kind of unpleasant place.
It was like almost horror, like when you go to the house of Martha. It's a horror story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it has elements of horror, this show as well.
Definitely. I mean, it definitely has, and I think especially like in episode 4, we were even talking about it starting to feel like a horror in episode 4, like that it's like a journey, and the genre shifts from something that is really funny at the beginning And then suddenly it gets darker and darker and darker and darker.
Somebody hurt you, didn't they? Who was it?
Martha, can you let go of my hand now, please? Martha, please let go!
It was kind of, their both performances were incredible, and you know, and it was actually quite funny on set. I think there was, I would say, oh, that's an actually interesting point I heard. It was the Steadicam operator that pointed it out, and I must say I agree. I think on set you wouldn't feel the intensity that the show eventually became. Like, it's way more intense and watching it than the atmosphere on set. The final perception on the screen, I definitely think that I agree with you that there is this sort of strange, I wouldn't say lightness because she's not a light character, but there is this sort of flamboyance that comes with her costume, her performance at times being ridiculous and outrageously funny. And I think her, you know, her also her dynamic in terms of performance and how she moves in the space and how she's, you know, that all contributes to that feeling I think you described. Whereas I think with Donnie, it's more that he's a bit stuck, and I think that is represented through his performance, body language, and the places where he's in the pub, for example. So I think overall it kind of contributes to those two feelings, but I don't think we ever distinguished how we're going to photograph Donnie and how we're going to photograph Martha. But what we definitely wanted to distinguish was how Martha intrudes Donnie's space. And since this is the point of view of Donnie's, the story is Donnie's point of view, and everything is kind of told through his character and his words, obviously, and the voiceover. I think there was definitely something in the dynamic of a camera kind of showing the intensity of the intrusion of Martha, but also how we accentuate through camera movement the moments or the beats in the story. I don't think it was necessarily hugely advertised, and it was the incredible thing was the sort of word of mouth thing. I think the combination of this kind of story never being told in such way, but also incredible openness and honesty about, and self-criticism in a way of the character, and I think, you know, however extremely far it goes in the story, I think there are elements that we can see in today's world, and people can somehow slightly relate to this kind of very convoluted relationship, and maybe as much as it is extreme in the story, that to some very little part there are signs of that in our, you know, culture and society of wanting to be special and, you know, kind of seeking attention and stuff, and I think, you know, it explores all those themes in an entertaining and somehow depressingly truthful way. So I think people do and enjoy that kind of honest approach, and in this sort of non-pretty gritty world, there is definitely a place to learn something about human nature, or a version of human nature.